Danny Flexen for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by my old friend Adam Smith, head of boxing. Is it boxing development now at Sky Sports?
Boxing development is the title, so it's developing what we are, what we're going to have as we go forward, which of course is it's a bit of a minefield at the moment. And yeah, look, it's the commercial side, so it's that side of sort of plotting what we're going to do, trying to bring the best fights to our audience, obviously contracts with AJ, with Matchroom, all that sort of side of things. So yeah, it's been a very interesting time, but of course, part of the Sky Sports leadership team, I'm also sort of across all the other sports and how how they've come back and what sort of issues they've had to overcome and with the lack of crowds, the difficulties, the sound, the atmosphere, but the fact is, listen, sport's back, and that's the most important thing for everybody. It's not the same. We all know it's not the same. We miss the crowds at the fight camp. We all miss the buzz, and we all miss people, don't we? We're all social animals, and we love the boxing community like that. We had a bit of that in the bubble in fight camp, but we want everyone back together. And Matt and I would like to be back at ringside on that apron, surrounded by a load of media and a load of fans. There's nothing like that, and I think. We've had to be patient during lockdown, when sport wasn't, it wasn't a possibility, and certainly with boxing, with the NHS, the frontline workers needed there. We weren't the first sport back, and rightly so. And I think Robert Smith's done a fantastic job, sort of governing our way through this and making sure that everything is right. It's safe. It's all negative tests. We did so many tests over fight camp, and on the night, social distances, and it's not easy. And I think there's a lot of people that have done a huge amount of hard work to get boxing up and running. And we're one of many sports on Sky Sports, so obviously there's a huge amount of attention on us at the minute, and we're trying to deliver what we can for fans, for sports fans, sort of around the world, so to speak, as the old MCs always say, around the globe. US Open, delayed US Open in the golf at the moment, and that's this week's thing. And so there's a lot of backlog, a lot of sports to be dealt with, and a lot of exciting times to come. But of course, we do miss the fans. We do want them back, and that atmosphere just can't be replaced, and we miss it hugely.
There's obviously a number of challenges in producing, especially the big events with no live gate attached. How did you guys and Matchroom, of course, manage it for the first Whyte Povetkin fight? How commercially did you make that viable?
That's a really good question, because it's very difficult. We've seen on both sides of the pond how difficult it is getting sort of box office pay-per-view events made. It really is hard. Frank basically said the other night, watching Anthony Yard win, what a good performance from him the other night. I'd love to see him in with Joshua Boazzi at some point. But Frank was saying how difficult it is with Dubois and Joyce. That's a great fight that we all want to see. And, it needs a crowd. And we all want crowds there. But that was the big problem. It was a massive logistical effort to get an innovative project like Fight Camp in Eddie's Garden done. There were so many hoops and hurdles to sort of overcome, and a great operational outfit from both Matchroom and Sky working together in unison on that to deliver that. So listen, there was Eddie took a big hit on it. There was a lot of money that was lost getting something like that, a statement like that out in a huge structure. It looked like the structure out in Saudi, didn't it? It was a huge sort of, massive sort of, incredible, spectacular look. There was drones, there was fireworks. We were trying to, sort of in a way compensate from that lack of atmosphere, lack of crowd, and make it as good as possible. For me, it was all about getting quality matches at whatever level. I said, look, even if you're talking area level or English level or British level, it didn't really matter. Just make sure they're really good fights, and then obviously build up to something sort of dramatic at the end, which of course it turned out to be. But yeah, it's a really good question, Danny. It's very, very hard, and we're in the middle of the Usyk Chisora, story at the minute, and trying to get that over the line. Without a gate, it is so difficult. There's a huge financial gap. So you have to be creative. You have to say, right, what do we think it's going to do on box office? Can the broadcaster help? Can the fighters take a little bit less? Can the managers help? With what's going to get this done? And I think the fighters have been fantastic because they're the ones taking the risk. They're the ones that want to get their careers moving again. But every single one of them, at whatever level, has put 100% into those performances. On BT, on Sky, on Top Rank, everything that we've seen have been some phenomenal displays. They don't have to worry about selling tickets. They've had that off. They can concentrate on the job in hand. But even if you've lost or if you've drawn, the Harper Jonas, the Eggington Cheeseman, didn't matter. They were all heroes. They were fantastic. They were brilliant because they put everything into it. And I think that they've taken bigger risks, the fighters. And I think that they've taken, Josh Warrington was telling me just this week that I'll take a cut to get back in. I want to fight. And I think that's really good. It's refreshing to see. You do have to adapt, but there are big holes because you're not going to get paid. No one's going to get the sort of money that was there before with the crowds. These fights were going to happen in Manchester at the O2. That adds a huge amount. So obviously, Eddie and I talk every day. It's a great relationship. But, I don my hat to him for getting that one over the line, Whyte Povetkin with no crowd. And look, we've announced the rematch as well. And we don't know where crowds are going to be in November. So we're taking, they're taking risks. And we know that on box office, these fights should appeal. They should do well. But, I said to Dillian's team, I was pleading with them to try and get the Katie Taylor-Pursoon fight over the line, and Katie not fighting just a mandatory, but getting a really good sort of number 2 or joint top of the bill over the line. So because I'm trying to fight for obviously the box office customers, I want the best for them. So it's adapting. It's just pulling and throwing a little bit. It's understanding the situation, and it's realizing that the money is not quite what it was. So until the gates are back, it's going to be very hard to make big fights.
And talking of the box office customers, can you give us a vague idea of how the Whyte Povetkin show performed, particularly compared to non-pandemic times?
Yeah, we were happy, really happy with it. It probably outperformed what we thought. We were very happy with what. I mean, you never know the numbers until 3-4 months down the line, because there's so many different ways now of seeing it. So we're not quite sure what it'll end up being, but everyone was happy with it. And I think the fact that we had the Taylor-Pursoon fight on as well was a real boost to it, because we all know women's boxing is going through the roof at the moment. Chantel Cameron, Savannah Marshall, Hannah Rankin about to fight for world titles, and it's just brilliant. And I think that's something which has really come through. And those fights, almost like you put Rachel Ball, Shannon Corney, all these fights are great and they end up being really good. So that's a real bonus that we've had in the last couple of years, that women's boxing's come through fantastically well. But I think, we were very happy. Dillian obviously, lost and that was a big upset for him and his side. But, we're sitting there and we just want great fights. And Alexander Povetkin's punch provides another great night, a rematch. Will lightning strike twice? All of the imponderables, same situation in a way that Joshua was in last year with Andy Ruiz. He got back in and rewrote the wrong sort of thing and did it obviously a lot differently and better the second time. Can Dillian do that, or has Povetkin got his number now, mentally, physically? Who knows? It's one of those, isn't it? You and I go way back, and we can remember the Eubank Collins, the immediate rematches there, the Lennox Lewis situations when there wasn't an immediate rematch with Oliver McCall. It took him a long time to reaccustom to Emmanuel Stewart's style, and then with Hasim Ratman, he thought, well, maybe it was the messing around on the Ocean's 11 set, maybe it was Carnival City and the atmosphere and the altitude, and something went wrong, and he wanted to get straight back in with him and look what happened in the rematch with Hasim Ratman. So who knows? And that's the beauty of heavyweight boxing. That's what provides the drama. So, to get that nailed on, and is it right that Dillian goes straight back into it? Povetkin's ready again. He's got to fancy his chances of doing it all over again. Dillian sitting there going, well, I was pretty much controlling the fight, certainly in the fourth round. I had the knockdowns, it was a mistake. I can rectify that. Dillian Whyte is his own man. He's his own character. He said to me half an hour after the fight, I want a rematch. So is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. It adds to the story. It adds to the spin, the narrative of heavyweight boxing as we wait for, what happens with Fury Wilder 3, as we wait for AJ Pulev, Listen, Dillian Whyte and Alexander Povetkin are getting out twice in this sort of year. That's incredible for them. So really excited about that. And as I said, I'm hoping that we can get Usyk Chisora over the line and, have another big announcement. You Anthony Joshua Pulev as well. There's 3 real big nights for us before Christmas. And then we hope that they get Wilder Fury done for December the 19th. Vegas or otherwise. Todd DeBerth very sort of confident on the phone to me the other day about the fact that would happen this side of of Christmas. So, it's really exciting that when the heavyweight division is bubbling. We just want Dubois Joyce really now. But I think we're not going to get a perfect year. Of course we're not. It's been a terrible year in so many ways, and a very difficult year for so many different families. That's what's most important, the health and safety of everybody. But in boxing terms, yes, we were going to get AJ in the Spurs Stadium. We were going to get the Whyte Povetkin night in Manchester, the Usyk Chisor in London. But look, if we've got some of that back, pretty much all of it back, even with no crowds or much less crowds, we want them back for every reason, not just for gate, but for atmosphere. And so look, and for the fact that fight fans want to come back out and see good fights. And look, we're doing everything we can. We're working night and day to get as best as, a program, a schedule as we can in this scenario, in this time. And we don't know. Next week we might be told we're all locked down again. There's another spike. We don't know. We're just adapting. Newcastle, can we get Richardson to Newcastle this week? It looks unlikely. We might have to change plans on that. So it's about adapting. It's about thinking on our feet. But, Danny, that's what we've done in boxing for however many years we've been in it. We've all had to do that. It doesn't go according to plan, and that's what makes it so gripping, so thrilling, so unpredictable. And, we're in a good place. And I think that we've got a lot to look forward to at the moment.
You alluded to the concerns in Whyte going straight back in with Povetkin. I think a lot of those concerns are more how quick the turnaround is rather than that it is an immediate rematch. 3 months is quite a short time, considering how devastating, mentally more than anything else, the knockout must have been, or the stoppage. Do you think the fighter in this case is the best person to make that call objectively?
You ask very good questions, Danny. Always have. I think that's another really good question. So from a business point of view, Eddie will want to get him back out, try and get him towards that world title. We want to get him back out. Obviously, that's. So, but there's no pressure. I didn't go around to see Dillian after and say, right, you've got to get back. It's not. It's the fighter and his team, his inner team's decision. What's more interesting probably is the Mark Tibbs situation, because he was with him for 4 years, and he'd have been looking at that and thinking, what did he do wrong? Did he get it? Did he get actually the tactics right or wrong? He seemed to be in control. He seemed to be winning. It's what is it? Just one of those things. But I think mentally, every fighter is different. And I think that some would say to you, yeah, we want a confidence booster. We want to take our time. Dillian didn't have many amateur fights. He's had a really sort of tough learning education in the professional ring, especially after the AJ defeat. He's taken on everybody. And I think he just sort of thinks, what, if I can't beat Povetkin, maybe I'm not what I think he just wants to get back in and prove he can and prove that he still deserves that world title shot, because almost like he didn't have to take Alexander Povetkin. He could have waited it out. He could have. But Dillian's all about entertaining, and yeah, of course, there's money involved. And as I said to you, he gets out twice this year, and maybe bank that money, and that's there. Who knows what next year's going to bring in this sort of volatile, unpredictable situation world we're in. So there may be a lot of things, but I think with Dillian, it was just a natural reaction. I want to get back in there as quickly as possible. I want to do this. He'd had such a great camp, I think, out in Portugal, that it was like it was a thunderous shot that came out of nowhere, and I think that's what he's going to put it down to now. Whether mentally, physically, getting back in the ring with Povetkin in 90 odd days is the right move. We might not know until the night itself, but I think he's a character that would want to. And Alexander Povetkin, he's the type, for me, if it had happened to him, he might want to do the same thing. They're old school hard men, aren't they? They're hard fighters. Povetkin knows this is the Indian summer of his career. He's 41. If he gets another world title shot, great. But you know what? This is what he knows and loves. He's getting paid for it. He's had all these fights on sort of either UK soil or around us, and he's become a bit of a cult character. He's the big Russian, and good luck to him. It's great, and he's going to go in there thinking he'll do it all over again. Dillian, maybe there will be some demons, but he's the sort of guy, I think, Danny. He's gone through a hard life. Jamaica, coming over to England. He was a dad very young. He's had to settle in London. He's gone through a lot of obstacles, and I think that he doesn't fear anybody. And I think for him, this is probably the right decision. But we won't know if it's the right decision for his boxing career until we get through November the 21st. So, yeah, quite surprised to see it so soon with all the sort of history of rematches. But, knowing the characters that maybe the pair of them are, and knowing the situation that the world's in, and everybody wants to sort of get big fights on, not that surprised.
Now, the autumn schedule for Sky Sports Boxing was revealed this week. You've got Joshua Buatsi in a main event, Lewis Ritson, which we already knew about, of course, and Dillian Whyte in the rematch. But the highlight for a lot of hardcore boxing fans is the addition of the World Boxing Super Series final next week, which I think they're all very happy about. Is there going to be more international dates announced for Sky Sports Boxing? And for specifically in a couple of weeks, the Charlo's pay-per-view over in the US, will that potentially be one of them?
Listen, we look at everything, Danny, as you know. The most important thing for us is that we get really good fights out at 10 o'clock at night UK time. That's our prime time. That's our prime audience. You know, we were, you know, obviously with the different, you know, box office events that could have happened, a lot of those were, you know, prime time UK. And for me, that's the key, that we get 10, 11 o'clock at night, we're getting the fights that the fans want to see. Because a lot of our boxing fans, a lot of our hardcore fans want to see everything. Yeah, we all want to see everything. We want to find a way to watch everything. It's a business too, and we can't have everything. We know on Sky we've got 11 different sports channels. You know, there's a lot of other sport out there, and we can't just sort of willy-nilly take this and that and expect sort of, you know, everybody to give us scheduling slots. You got to remember there's a massive backlog of sports as well. You know, it's crunching towards Christmas. There's going to be you know, lots of events that have been delayed even to next year. So it's harder for us to sort of, you know, go to our bosses and say, oh, by the way, there's a really good sort of, you know, excellent tradie fight in America at 4 o'clock in the morning. We want to bring those fights, of course. And, you know, I've got a great relationship with Araceli VAS over at PBC, you know, and Todd DeBurf at Top Rank. And, you know, they're always saying to me, you know, what fights can we put on? Can we do Loma and Teofimo Lopez? I'd love to do that. Could we do, you know, the Charlo brothers? Could we do the great fight with Gervonta Davis, Leo Santa Cruz? I love Leo Santa Cruz. We've had so many fights with him on. But, you know, it's a business, and we have to look at what is going to rate and what is going to be right for our sort of, you know, it's not just a boxing sort of portfolio. This is a Sky Sports portfolio. You know, what are we bringing? You know, it's Premier League, it's top cricket, it's different tournaments, it's the golf, it's the Formula One, it's the darts tournaments, the Super League, the NBA, the NFL. You know, we have our moment in the sun, you know that, when there's a big box office event and it stops traffic a bit and, you know, everybody's talking boxing. But, you know, unfortunately, it's a smaller number that are the trade fans that we love and that we want to bring everything to. And in a way, that's sort of what Box Nation was. And, you know, they were trying to put everything on. And it's difficult to sort of give that guarantee. But we do look at things. We do try and make it happen. You know, I talk to Eddie about, you know, innovative ways. You know, we always look at the budgets and see if we can do things that, you know, and we'll pick and choose as best as we can. But at the moment, we think the World Super Series is a fantastic one to get in. It's a great little 4 or 5 weeks we've got in October. If we can get Usyk Chisora over the line as well, then that's a fantastic next few weeks for Sky customers, we believe. And then obviously there's going to be more big announcements. We've got a couple of big plans for November as well around the Whyte Povetkin date. We've got Anthony Joshua back in December. So we're hoping that the sort of whole structure will look very appealing. And of course we want to appeal to everyone, the trade fans, the casual fans. But the most important things for us are the Sky customers. And, you know, we think very hard and very carefully before we choose and pick and decide. But you and I are boxing fans. We'd have everything. Sometimes, you know, the business won't quite work that way. So, yeah, I can't promise anything, but we do our best to bring what we can.
Now, one thing we did see over the summer, and it was a summer where it seemed like anything could happen, so maybe it shouldn't have been a massive surprise, was Frank Warren apparently reaching out across the aisle to his Matchroom counterpart, Eddie Hearn, to make a series of co-promotional fights, or at least to sit down and discuss this. What was your initial reaction to seeing that press release? Did you think it was a publicity stunt, or did you think there was some genuine attempt to make those fights behind it?
I knew it was going to, well, I thought it was going to happen actually, Danny, because, you know, Frank's worked at Sky for many years. He's a brilliant promoter. He's got a great stable, but, you know, there's sides a little bit. Matchroom and Sky, Queensbury, Frank and BT. And, it's been a little bit like that. And obviously you get around the boxing writers table and everyone's friends for a night, and then you get back to sort of business the next day. But look, I said to Eddie 2 or 3 years ago when BT got involved, embrace the competition. Let's see what they've got. And it's great. And look, I went over to the Fury Wilder show in Vegas, and I watched nearly every one of Frank's shows. And, we're boxing fans, and it's great that there's so much opportunity out there for fighters and for fans to have such a lot of fights on. Obviously we concentrate on Sky Business and Matchroom Business. Eddie's our promoter, and Matchroom are our partners in not just boxing but huge amounts of things over many years. We've got a deep history with them. But lockdown was a funny time, and I suddenly started hearing a lot from Frank, and we interviewed Tyson Fury a few times. Things that maybe we wouldn't have done before, and it was great. And as Todd DeBerth says, whether you're Al Heyman or Bob Arum or Eddie Hearn or Frank Warren, everyone's being dealt the same cards at the moment. So, there is an idea of collaboration a bit. There was talk of maybe even, Matchroom and Queensbury or whatever. So Robert Smith was talking this way, that can we keep them to the same sort of areas, and so that we're not all traveling around the country. There's a lot of those sort of conversations that went on for the sort of health and safety as well, and the security. So I think a lot of people did talk in that time. So Frank said to me, come on, you've got to tell, your man Eddie, you've got to tell him. I'm like, Frank, come on, he said, tell your man that we want to get the best fights made, us against you. So it did come a little bit out of the blue, because, I had a nice email from George Warren sort of saying that this was going to happen. I wrote back and said, look, Eddie and Frank, let's Eddie and Frank go and have a bit of lunch, and then maybe we can have a chat off the back of it. And I'd love to see Boazzi and Yard. I'd love to see, Daniel Dubois against some of the Matchroom fighters. Of course, there's some great fights to be made. Realistically, do I think they will? I don't know. I mean, it's like I had lunch with Eddie last week. We put the worlds to right. We plotted the sort of next 6 months, and I said to him, well, when are you and Frank having lunch? And am I coming?
Oh, yeah.
Am I coming for the dessert? What's happening? And he said, no, we will. We'll get together and we'll have a lunch. We'll have a bite to eat, and we'll see what can be made. And Eddie will have his issues with some of those matches, and Frank will have his, and we'll see. And is there any likelihood that they'll? I don't know. We all know that if AJ gets through Pulev and Fury gets through Wilder, and then suddenly, the Fury-Joshua fight becomes more realistic. Obviously, everyone sort of said it's been done, and we know both fighters want it, and they're frustrated and they want it to happen. But it's still a long way off, and 2021 might bring us more things. But maybe that is the sort of the fight where, Frank and Eddie really will be connected, and maybe that will lead to, many of these fights going on the card or spin-offs from that. But look, I'm all for. It's difficult because, with my Sky hat on, obviously we want the best for our business. And, for our business, Matchroom are the best, and we love working with them. We've got a great relationship. But at the same time, we want the best fights. And some of the best fights can be made only with promoters working together. And, I did an interview actually with Boxing Monthly many years ago when I was given the job of the executive producer job of boxing. And suddenly, I remember doing the interview with Glenn Evans, and I was saying, the one thing I want all the promoters to come around the table and let's get these best fights on. And I remember, I think most of them saying at the time, what are you talking? Utter rubbish. It will never happen. So look, it's sometimes you've got to be collaborative, and, we're all in the same business. We're rivals. We all respect each other, but we want to do the best for obviously our business, and that's what we do. So I'm open to it. I'm always open to talking to Frank. He's charming. He's entertaining. He's a brilliant promoter. He's got a great stable. I love a lot of his fighters. It's great. And look, would we like to see a lot of these matches being made? Of course we would, but will it happen in reality? That's up to Eddie and Frank to sit down. So I think the first thing that happens is, now we've sort of got our schedule sort of out of the way, I think Eddie and Frank should meet up for, what are they going to have? Sushi? They're going to have a nice Italian? I don't know. It's be amazing to be a fly on the wall, wouldn't it? And maybe George and I and others will sort of, come in and be waiting outside.
At intervals, yeah.
Listen, I was there. I was just 10 yards away when they spoke for the first time. I mean, I think there was one moment when Eddie and I had a meeting or something, and he walked out and he walked past Frank, and I think a few years back, and there was nothing there. I think there was that. And then there was a phone call. I think I think Frank said, check your phone, Eddie, or something. Or there was an Eddie check, and there was a message, and it was from Frank, and so he called him back. And that happened in the fight camp bubble, and I was still 10 feet away, and I was just like watching him and thinking, wow, if that's happening, then anything can happen. Never say never in boxing. I think Bob Arum and Don King have hugged and told each other they love them at times, having sort of wanted to, destroy each other for 30 years. So it's boxing for you. We're all gripped by it, aren't we? And we all want the best fights. And if there's ways that they can, even sort of work in association or something, maybe there is opportunities. There's the BT Sky stuff as well. And, look, BT sits on our platform. There's a lot of links. And, as I said, I went out to BT, covered the Fury Wilder second fight, but I was out there and, you do want to be part of it. There's everybody wants to be involved in the big fights, and Frank has got a huge amount of fighters, and so has Eddie, and let's see if the twains do meet.
And you mentioned that Tyson Fury reached out to you during lockdown as well. I mean, I have to ask, what did he say? What was his motivation for getting in touch?
No, I think it was more we wanted to do an interview with him. I think it was more we sort of said. Look, I've always admired Tyson Fury hugely. He's worked at Sky before. We took a step back. He's promoted by Frank Warren, by Bob Arum. He's not our fighter, but of course, we're interested in him. He's a character. It's an amazing story what he's gone through. We're not sitting here as the AJ fan club. Of course, Anthony Joshua has been a brilliant ambassador for us. He represents Sky. He represents Matchroom. He's a hugely important part of the whole process we've had since London 2012. And I would say that maybe the epicenter of all of it. Yes, we had Froch Groves at Wembley. Was there 80,000 there? And we had, Mayweather Pacquiao made finally. A lot of things happened, and London 2012 was hugely successful for the fight game. But I think Anthony Joshua is a major part of why people around the offices and Sky corridors love the fight game still, and why the box office fights came back and all of that, and we've had even press conferences at Sky HQ because AJ has done so much. But let's not forget what Tyson Fury has done, and we never do. As fight fans, we don't, and certainly you shouldn't in any walk of life. The guy went through so much. I remember seeing him in Monaco. He was 24, 25 stone, and he was begging Eddie. He was saying, I'm going to be the heavyweight champion. I was like, you're never going to get in the ring again. It was like unbelievable what he's come through. I have so much respect for him. He talks so openly about his issues, about what he's gone through. And, to come back and the dramatic fights with Wilder, getting up off the floor and then, dismantling him in the manner he did in Vegas. I mean, it's just been extraordinary. So actually, I was like, look, the guys on my team were sort of the editorial digital guys. Like, let's get hold of Tyson Fury. And I was like, look, if we can get an interview with Tyson Fury, great. So it sort of came about, and he said, yeah, and we'll do it. And we did an interview, and he was like, it was great fun. And I said, well, let's do it again. And then just little things like Tyson Fury, the horse Tyson Fury ran the other day in the St. Ledger. And I was like, wow, that's a great story. I said, so I messaged him. I said, Tyson, what do you? He said, he's unbeaten, the horse. He's a big outsider, but who knows? Maybe we'll get a good run with him. And listen, we're having a bit of fun. I think he's frustrated. He wants it. We've seen him meet AJ in Marbella, wherever it was. And, I think it's everybody's just sort of, getting a bit closer, a bit more. I don't think it's like, we see with Frank and Eddie, it's not the division so much. It's like, it may go back to that, of course, but ultimately we all want to see these big fights made, and maybe the fight is Tyson's frustrated. He wants to fight. Frank's saying if he doesn't fight Wilder in December, he wants to get him back in the ring and fight here against someone. I can understand that because these guys want to fight. This is the prime of their careers, and like the Canelo situation, we just want him to fight. We don't want to miss out. We don't want to see him on, bless him on the yacht on Mexican Independence Day handing out champagne. But that to me is a subliminal message to fight fans to say, Chingueira Myers, when I should be fighting and you should be enjoying me. And it's like that's what we want. We want these guys back out there, and the sooner the better. But in the meantime, we'll try and keep in touch with as many as we can.
Now you've got this kind of relationship with Fury, texting now and again and stuff. He must have said something to you off the cuff, off camera about Joshua and that fight. Just give us a bit of an insight into that.
Yeah, look, I think he really respects Anthony Joshua. I think they might not mention it now, but they have talked off the record before, winding each other up a bit, of course. But, fundamentally, they both actually gone very different ways through their career. And they both earned a lot of money, and they're both, standing as world champions. And, there's a lot of people that think Tyson Fury will beat Anthony Joshua. And there's people that think Anthony Joshua will beat Tyson Fury, and that, he has got the ability to do that. And look, it's a great fight, and it's a great fight that we could see 2 or 3 times. I think that, look, he's more sort of, come on, let's get this fight. We all want to see it happen. So I think he doesn't care. It was more like, well, Dillian Whyte sort of next in line for you. And he's like, I don't care about Dillian Whyte. I want to fight Joshua. He wants to fight Joshua, and Joshua wants to fight him. And that's sort of been on the cards for a long time. We nearly got to the situation where AJ got to Wilder first, and there was the big issues, and it all sort of ran out of steam. And then he fought Povetkin, and Wilder took what we thought was probably a fairly comfortable defense against Fury, because at that time, Fury had been coming off those couple of sort of okay fights, and people were like Woody, and so he shocked us a bit in that. But that's what Tyson Fury does. He shocked us out in Germany when he beat Klitschko, and he spooked him on the week, and even on the day with a canvas and all that, and the gloves and all that sort of stuff. And then he went in and boxed a really good fight, and Klitschko was stuck in the mud. And he surprises us, doesn't he? This is a man that John McDermott pretty much beat. It's amazing what Tyson Fury has gone through, and I think he's got to a stage in his life where he's very happy with his family. He's very, very connected to his life in Morecambe, and I think he's very settled for a guy that's been through so much. And I think, he just wants to get the big fights on. And he's saying to me, I don't want to do any interviews until I've got something to say, and then he says something, but he's like, he doesn't want to. He wants to talk about fights. He wants to talk. He said, we can't have fights with no crowds. We need crowds. And I said, yeah, I understand that. But I think he's desperate to get back into a ring, Danny. I think, so is Anthony. Anthony was our guest at Fight Camp on the last one. And, he was looking in phenomenal shape already. And he was like shadow boxing around ringside. He was like 15 meters from the ring thinking, why am I not in there? These are fighters. Yes, there's a lot of politics. Yes, they're at such a level that the business and the numbers have to be right. But fundamentally, they want to fight. And I think that both of them have got huge respect for each other. And I think both of them know they can make a ton of money, and they can also make history. One of them is going to end up being the undisputed, the unified, whatever. If it's a great fight, I'm sure there'll be 2 of them anyway in the rematch clauses and all that. I think that's between Eddie and Bob and Frank. I'm sure that's their business to sort out. As fight fans, as media, we want to see the fights. We want to see the biggest fights. But yeah, Tyson's been entertaining. Of course, he was entertaining in lockdown, wasn't he? Doing his workouts and stuff. He's a character, and Anthony's a different character and a lovely, humble guy, and appeals to a great audience too. And both of them bring so much to the table. And we've got to hope that they perform. And let's not count out Kubrat Pulev and Deontay Wilder in all this, because Pulev has waited for his opportunity very patiently. Top Rank think he'll do a number on Joshua. He's a tough, hard opponent for Joshua, especially with the time out of the ring as well. That's no gimme. That's a tough fight. And Wilder, you don't know what to think, do you? Fury should go in there and beat him up again or outbox him. Listen, don't forget Deontay Wilder had him almost seeing stars in that first fight at the end of it. How he got up from that. He's got power, unbelievable, freakish power. And believe you me, I've been in the front row at ringside seeing that power, hands on. And he hits like, pound for pound. It reminds me of Tommy Hearn sort of power. And he doesn't look like he's got it, but those levers and the wrist. And I just think that power is freakish. When he knocked out Luis Ortiz, when he knocked out Dominic Breazeale, it was scary being there. It's eerie, okay? Tyson Fury, I thought he was going to try and outbox him. He went in and did what, the Kronk setup told him to do, what Sugar Hill, what Andy Lee said was going to happen. There's a small group that thought that. He implemented that. Now, Deontay Wilder has had plenty of time now out of the ring. Maybe as you go back to the Whyte Povetkin situation, longer to adjust to that, to think, okay, and it wasn't a one-punch knockout. It was a dismantling. He beat him up in there. Whatever you think about the stories of the bicep or the this or the costume or whatever it is, he got beaten up, right? So he's got to go back to the drawing board. But Deontay Wilder is a clever guy. He's got a great team around him, and he's got a lot of power. And I know that is a fight that he believes he can win. So let's not count these guys out. What we've got to hope happens is that both of those fights, whether they're semi-finals, whether they're real massive fights in their own right, maybe a bit of both, they happen before Christmas. And we can see where we are, hopefully have a nice, peaceful, relaxing Christmas, and the state of the world will be in a better place. And 2021 will be a bit clearer for where we are with a heavyweight picture. But there's a lot of things to happen before we get Fury and Joshua in a ring together.
One last thing I want to ask you about before we wrap up, it's something that you're not directly involved in, but you may have some insight into, is the Canelo situation currently. Just before we go into detail though, have you ever been involved in a situation that's similar to this, in that as a broadcast exec, you're kind of in the middle of a fighter and his promoter?
I haven't actually, mainly because, Matchroom and Eddie have been our partner for so long. I believe there was, probably times maybe when Naz or Lennox Lewis, I think, maybe had deals with Sky, but this is back in the days of Vic Wakeling, almost one of the founders of Sky Sports, the amazing Vic who brought boxing, was a big boxing fan. We were very lucky because, Vic Wakeling, Barney Francis have been huge boxing fans. We've been very lucky. And now Rob Webster loves his boxing. He also loves a lot of other sports, but he does love his boxing.
And he came in that job, I suppose.
And he came. Well, it helps for us, doesn't it? It helps for the boxing department and the boxing fans, because you could come in there and just think, right, all I want to do is football and cricket or golf or whatever. But Rob's very he loves all sports. He's a big rugby fan. He's a big football. He's a big cricket fan, and he's a great guy too. And he came to fight camp, but Barney was is a real sort of hardcore fight fan. So he led so much of this, and so much is down to Barney, the absolute sort of the rebuilding of boxing in many ways, the renaissance period we've had over the last few years. Look, I haven't been. I suppose I was sort of involved with the Hay and Klitschko sort of situation, and trying to. I remember my Christmas being ruined one year with that, and having Adam Booth on one line, and I can't remember Bernd Bonte and. I remember Frank Warren and Adam Booth with Groves and DeGale having two phones, and sort of not and Adam Booth with his clauses and A, B, C, and all of that. And look, everyone's trying to do the best for them, Bernd Bonte and all of that. So I've been in the sort of heat of quite a lot of these negotiations, but not in a situation like this. And it's as you say, it's not really one for us to speculate on. We're on the outside of this. We do know that DAZN made a huge deal with Canelo. They got one of the great attractions in world boxing, but they had to pay a lot of money, and we all sort of raised our eyebrows at the amounts that were talked about a couple of years ago. This $365 million over 11 fights or whatever it was is just mind-boggling. And he's fought Rocky Fielding, and then he had that great fight with Danny Jacobs, and that was a privilege to be at. He was just that little bit better than Danny, but it was a really good fight. And all you want to see him in, Canelo, is the best fights. And I thought Billy Joe Saunders or Callum Smith, they're certainly premium opponents if you look at what we think of them and what we know about them. But obviously, as a sort of commodity, as a commercial sale in America, maybe not. And it's very difficult. I don't know what the contracts, between DAZN and Golden Boy, the premium, the lack of premium, does he get paid for this and that? That's between them to work out. Obviously, it's ended up in litigation. Will it go through? Will it be settled? We see a lot of these things settled. There seems to be some sort of mistake they've made, first of all. The Alvarez team, was that on purpose? Was it a sort of shot at them to say, look, we could take this forward if you don't sort the stuff out now? Or is it that they're going to go forward and take this up? And Golden Boy have got a deal with DAZN as well, I believe, with other another promotional deal separate. Where was Alvarez in the middle of this? He's the star fighter. It's a bit of a mess, isn't it? And we watch it. Todd DeBurr said it's just theatre to watch, isn't it, from afar? But they must be thinking, the other promoters, well, if if this goes belly up, are we going to have a chance of getting Canelo? And so, there's PBC, there's Top Rank, there's Matchroom, there's Frank, there's all sorts of people that would love to have Canelo on their roster. But we know the big money, the big purses involved. Of course, you've got to mix COVID into it and what's happened with the pandemic, that it's not easy to make this sort of money on the fights with no gates. So that's a difficult one. As a fight fan and as a boxing man, I just want to see Canelo back in the ring. I want to see Canelo back in the ring against the likes of your Callum Smiths, your Billy Joes, your Golovkins. That's what we want. And, let's hope that not too much of his career is wasted in the courtroom, so to speak. And we will get that. And I'm sure DAZN are in a very positive. I'm looking forward to catching up with Joe Markowski maybe today, but I'm due to catch up with him soon and sort of try and find out a bit more. But they're very bullish. They've got a lot of plans for the winter as well, like us. And, they obviously, Canelo is a big part of their product, and they'll want to get this sorted sooner rather than later and get him out fighting. So let's hope that we do get that, and that he's not, partying on yachts for too long, and we get him back in a ring. So I love watching Canelo.
Would you guys ever consider doing a direct deal with a fighter? Obviously, Matchroom are your exclusive promotional partner, but if a fighter ever got big enough, like a Canelo, AJ as an example over here, would that ever happen?
As you said, Matchroom's our partner, our broadcast partner. And, it's not just in boxing. Matchroom have given us the darts. Matchroom have given us the pool, the Fisher Mania, the ping pong, all sorts of wild and wacky sports that, Barry's sort of turned his hand to over the years. So this is a deep relationship. This is a very loyal relationship from both sides. We all know that the Matchroom boxing contract is coming up within the next year, and Eddie and I work very, very hard on delivering another one, delivering another number of years, and we'll hope that we can get something agreed over the line. Obviously, DAZN have a deal with Eddie in America. They'll presumably want Eddie themselves in the UK, but we've got a great relationship. We've got a phenomenal arsenal here at Sky, and boxing's a part of that. I always say it. It's nothing. If we all want boxing, but we've got Premier League football that drives us, and it's not just the sport. There's a whole number of things. There's Sky Q. There's the broadband. There's the news. There's the the mobile, Sky Mobile, and we're all under, of course, Comcast, where they've got NBC and Universal. So it's a huge media empire. We like the position we're in. We enjoy working with Anthony Joshua, and we have done since the word go. There's a lot of loyalty on both sides there. AJ and Freddie have been phenomenally loyal to us. It's worked both ways. Same with Matchroom, and we're going to go forward like that. So absolutely, Eddie and I work in tandem, and for me, long may that continue.
So just cutting through some of that, if AJ ever left Matchroom, and I've got to emphasise, there's no reason to expect that to happen, would you still be able to work with him?
Look, we'll cross those bridges if they ever happen. We've seen what happened with Naz when he left Frank Warren, with Ricky Hatton when he left, when Lennox Lewis, had his sort of deal with HBO, and then look, there are many ways that fights can be made, but it's pretty simple, I think. Here, we've got Matchroom and we've got Sky, and we're delivering, month by month, terrific action, terrific box office events when we feel fit. It was the first box office event of the year, of course, the other night with Whyte and Povetkin. So, we haven't had one before that, and we may be looking at 2-3 more before the end of the year. And then look, we work towards AJ and Fury, but we obviously, we want to make sure that Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn, and we are all, we all go forward together, because, look, there are times where I say to Eddie, look, come on, I want better than that. There are times where he says, come on, Adam, we need this. We haven't got the money for that, or whatever. There's debates, on a weekly basis, of course. But Eddie and I often sing from the same hymn sheet. We often want to roll together. We often want to sort of roll that dice together. We have the same sort of vision. We're very glass half full. We're very much, we can see what's out there. And I think that, we work well as a team. Matchroom, him and Frank, and the great sort of, team that he's got. The boxing team at Sky is fantastic. The bosses at Sky that help sort of make these things actually happen in financial terms. But Eddie and I, we believe we know the boxing world, and we work really well together. We're very similar. We work 24/7. People might look at us and think very different people, and the way we're different parts of the world and whatever, we come together. But you know what? We have an ambition. We have a bit of a relentless nature of trying to get things done. We have a passion. We have, we get up in the morning and we want to do things. And I think that's a big part of it. There's a lot of other people involved. But I talk to him, and I think that's increased over lockdown as well. It's been every day we've been swapping messages. I know what his kids are doing in their homework. I know the frustrations he's got at home. I know the fact that he's been doing a bit of homeschooling, and his wife probably doesn't want him there and all that, and he's not been able to fly around the world. But he's had a bit more of Essex life, and he's had the fight camp in his garden, and Barry had, was unwell for a bit, and he's been, I think, but that lasted 5 minutes, didn't it, Barry? You can't keep Barry down for long. But, it is. And I think that it's important. I think it's been a very reflective period as well. We've looked back at some of the great nights we've put on together with Matchroom and Sky, with, the AJ Klitschko night at Wembley, the Foxgroves, there's all those sort of things. It's a chance for us to reflect. And the key is that we're challenged. We love being challenged. If things go wrong, we want to make them better. We want to go again. And we've got that sort of passion and attitude, the pair of us. So yeah, I wouldn't want to work with I want to work with Eddie. So, sometimes you've got to tell him, what we think, and sometimes he's got to tell us what he thinks. But it's a great relationship, and it's taken many years of loyal working together. And I've got my Sky hat on, he's got his Matchroom hat on, but also we want to make the best we can for fight fans. And sometimes I think fans don't understand that, or they don't want to. They think Eddie just wants to line his pockets, Sky want to line their pockets. And as I said at the beginning, it is a business. It is a business, and we're all in business. But if there's ways that we want to make the fight fans happier. That's what we want to do. We want to bring the best fights we can, the best nights, and we want to get better. In the production that Georgie Faulkner and Ed Robinson lead is fantastic, and with Anna and Johnny and Matt and Carl and Tony, and we work really hard, and we've got a great setup, I think, with the different ways we can do the podcast, the digital space, the social space, the Sky Sports News, Sky News. We've got a lot of avenues, and look, we'll always continue to go forward. It's an ever-changing business, and as COVID is, and the pandemic is changing on a weekly basis, we have to adapt. But yeah, I still enjoy my morning calls with Eddie, and long may they continue.
Great stuff. Well, I've enjoyed this midday call with you. Really appreciate your time. Sorry to keep you for so long, but there was a lot to talk about, and hopefully we'll get to do it again soon.
Cheers, Danny. Take care, mate.
And you, Adam. Take care, mate.